I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color. You see me? The Hard Knock Life. Comics, movies, and TV. Yeah.
Welcome to Hard Knock Life. I'm Keith Chow.
I'm Britney Monet.
Hi, I'm Dominic Ma.
It is the MC-Hugh officially.
Oh, I get it. In some ways, it's been the MC-Hugh for a while. I mean, Hugh Jackman did a lot of work on that. Like, I know we debate over what the starting points. There are various starting points of the MCU, but Hugh Jackman, like, doing well as Wolverine was definitely one of them.
Yeah, well, particularly if you broaden the MCU with the multiverse to go beyond just the Kevin Feige stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Actually, if that's the case, then a little movie predates X-Men by a year. But we'll talk about that Daywalker movie because I think there's a lot of stuff around that. But anyway, how are you guys doing?
I'm great.
Cool.
A cool thing happened yesterday that I'm actually saving for my nerd popping.
Anyone who follows Britney has an inkling about what the nerd popping will be. We'll just leave it there. I did not bury the lead. I started with it. I think for me, the biggest holy shit moment this week was this YouTube video that Ryan Reynolds sent out into the world talking about his ideas or lack thereof for Deadpool 3. And it kind of is like we ran out of ideas, so let's just go with the most obvious, and that's bringing Hugh Jackman. Even though he said Logan would be his last time playing Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. You did say that, huh? Plans change.
I feel like there's a lot of factors. Maybe he, thought he would get a whole bunch of other opportunities for other films or even just a lot of Broadway work. And I just feel like it hasn't been popping for him like he thought.
You mean it hasn't been snickting for him? And
I just feel like, I don't know. Because I feel like there's this weird now thing where oh, you've done superhero movies. Even if someone has done work outside of it before and proved that they're really talented, like Hugh Jackman is ridiculously talented. For some people don't realize that. So I don't know. I feel like that could be part of it, or maybe he really was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do it with Ryan. Why not?
Yeah, maybe he scratched the itch, quote unquote, with getting to be the Music Man for a while in Broadway, and maybe that was enough for him. And he's like, oh, I do want to be Wolverine again. And that's what's cool about this. Plans can change. When you say it's the last time ever, it doesn't have to be the last time ever, because comic books and superheroes never die and all that stuff. And sorry, just for context clarification, we are talking about, again, Wolverine played by Hugh Jackman coming back in Deadpool 3, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Did you see the teaser video that Ryan Reynolds put out?
No, I just read I didn't watch
it's really funny.
I just read the news part of it.
I actually said when it first dropped that I think the most Deadpool thing that they could do, honestly, is they said September 6, 2024 would be the release date for Deadpool 3. And I think the trolliest thing they could do, the most Deadpool thing they should do, is on that date release X-Men Origins Wolverine and just say that that's Deadpool 3.
That is pretty funny and scandalous.
I would have a meltdown if that happened.
And they are re-releasing all these movies in theaters lately. No, but I think that joke will happen earlier than that. But
I think he made the joke, I couldn't keep my mouth sewn shut about this one or something that.
That was
okay. Now, did they make reference in the video about how X-Men Origins Wolverine had Deadpool in it and all that stuff? People might have forgotten that.
The tweet that Ryan sent out was, I can't keep my mouth sewn shut, which was a reference to that horrible scene where
so
the merc with the mouth has no mouth. Just to backtrack to X-Men Origins, was the director or the writer or whoever was responsible for that idea, was it just that we wanted Ryan Reynolds' character's face to resemble the mask without wearing a mask, and that's why they sewed his mouth shut? What is the thinking behind?
What was the thinking?
Because none of them in the original movies were any of the X-Men costumes, or some of them are very campy costumes, and I feel like it was trying to not be so campy and be funny, so they're trying to do more serious stuff, and Deadpool is the most serious character, so it's just okay, he gotta shut up his mouth, which totally defeats the purpose of the character.
Right. Yeah, you totally miss what Deadpool is. And I wonder, because Deadpool has the most comic accurate costume, speaking of,
Mhm.
Do you think we'll finally get Wolverine in the yellow and orange or the yellow
I
and blue?
hope so.
Oh, they gotta. They're coming all the way around to it. Because, when you said that, Keith, I remembered like over the years, at some points, they were really against having the costumes and the masks. Remember the period when it was sort of an unspoken rule when that we're gonna have these movie stars, we're not gonna put the mask all the time, so we're gonna go out of our way to have the superhero movies, but never have them be in the mask costume.
Right.
And then at some point that changed. But the point at which it changed was definitely after X-Men Origins Wolverine, because they were going all out of their way to do really stupid shit just to not have the mask. And then finally they came around to, well, Deadpool is like one of the better looking costumes in his own movie. And also Ryan Reynolds is, acting the shit out of it with or without the mask on.
Mhm.
So I think, that's positive, progressive changes just as far as the costumes go. And of
Yeah.
course, we're nerds. We're biased towards wanting to see the costumes a little bit, aren't we? I mean,
Right. And even the masked characters like Spider-Man, they always, every movie found a way for Peter to lose his mask at some point.
Mhm.
yeah, he gets his mask punched off or ripped off or whatever, and that's and no, there's still a logic to that, but like we have never seen Hugh's live action Wolverine costume, and we really should. And
Yeah. It was teased at the end of the Wolverine in the post-credit scene.
right,
Remember, he had the suitcase that he opens, and then there was
Right.
the Wolverine helmet, which he never wears again, even though we've got like 3 movies set post the
Mhm.
Wolverine, and he never put that
yeah.
helmet on.
Now, my friend nerds, do we have preference on yellow and blue versus brown and off brown and tan?
Yeah, I said orange
Or-
earlier. I meant brown, but
I'm fine with either version. I don't know. I just want to see something other than him in like, a leather jacket and t-shirt and
Yeah.
pants or whatever. Like, yeah.
I lean towards brown because like I've always thought the blue and yellow was a little goofy. Maybe it'll work better on camera though. I'm not sure about that one, but aesthetically I lean towards the brown and brown, which I think is the one that they teased in
yeah,
The
it was.
Wolverine.
I think it was more brown.
Mhm.
What I want to see him in, I want to see him in the skin tight cowl with the whiskers that he has in the first encounter with the Incredible Hulk. That's what I want to see Hugh Jackman.
Oh yeah, that's old school. The early Wolverine costume.
Yes.
Less
And-
horns on the head, more whiskers. But now we're getting super picky and nerdy. But that's what we do here. That's okay.
So I know, like, the nerds lost their shit when Hugh Jackman announced he was coming back.
Yeah, sure. That's all.
Yeah. For you guys, is there any disappointment though that like we're at a point where we're getting mutants in the MCU? Kamala Khan is a mutant. I think they confirmed this week Namor will be a mutant in Wakanda Forever. We've been getting hints at the X-Men coming. And I think for a lot of folk, they were excited to see like how would Kevin Feige do the X-Men. But so far, other than Kamala and Namor, we've gotten Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman. Like, we're not reinventing the X-Men for the MCU so far. Is there a little disappointment there?
I mean, a little bit, but also at the same time, I just feel like there's certain people that I hope they do recast and change. There's other people I'm okay with saying come back. Like, I'm okay with, obviously Ian McKellen and both Michael Fassbender. I don't know if there's a way to make it work with both of them being in the MCU. Also, I would really love to see James Marsden come back. But I don't know, for Storm, I kind of want someone else.
I don't think anybody wants Halle Berry back for.
I like Halle Berry. I want to make that clear. I like her, but I think Storm is supposed to be someone with darker skin. So
That was the one character they could never figure out from the first movie to like the 7th movie she shows up in.
Yeah.
I don't think they've done Storm great ever in the live action. And yeah, I think there's room for another actor there. On the Wolverine side, and I know this is debatable, but like I think Hugh Jackman is great as Wolverine. And I think that was the first instance of them getting the casting of the superhero super right. And everyone kind of felt that it was right. I mean, I'm talking about, whatever it was, 25 years ago. Because there was always this thing about the superhero movies, like, do they play in live action to normal audience and stuff like, and it had something to do with, like, could you find the exact right actor to totally inhabit the role? And they got two things. They got Patrick Stewart, who's like, totally perfect for doing Professor X, but he was already a known quantity. So that they found someone who was a relatively unknown quantity and just nailed it as Wolverine and then became a superstar on that track. Like, that was really important. So I think it's good that they're bringing back Hugh Jackman for many reasons. It's like the sort of biggest high profile thing they could do because everyone loves their Wolverine. And Wolverine has his healing factor, so he's ageless, or so he can be any kind of age. It really doesn't matter. It can adjust towards however Hugh Jackman's body has changed over the years.
I mean, to your point about Hugh Jackman, I think you're right in the sense that like the cinematic version of Wolverine, because you will have the fanboys debate, well, Wolverine should be 5'3", and
But fuck that. I mean, they're all, yes, most actors are 5'3", but
Tom Cruise should have been Wolverine.
Yeah,
I think to your point about like that doesn't happen as much anymore, but like the idea of the unknown, right? Like this was Christopher Reeve becoming Superman,
right,
and nothing
perfect
else
example
can be pictured for Superman because the character and the actor meshed in everyone's mind. And it's the same thing for Wolverine. For like people who read the comics, people who didn't read the comics, there was something about this unknown quantity, as you said, embodying the spirit of Logan in great movies and shitty movies. Didn't matter. It was Hugh Jackman that stood out and above, and is the shadow that will loom large over anyone else who gets cast as Wolverine. The way Christopher Reeve's shadow to this day looms over Superman. I mean, Chadwick wasn't an unknown, but I think Chadwick has a similar kind of presence to the Black Panther character. And Kevin Feige, another thing that happened this week, said in an interview, like he gave some of the reasoning behind why they ultimately decided not to recast at this point. And I think that's another thing to keep in mind is that we're going to get a T'Challa again someday.
Yeah.
Especially with the multiverse. We're going to get probably a Wolverine that's not Hugh Jackman. I think that's the other thing we have to keep in mind. Opening of the multiverse, allowing Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland to all exist together. Like Wesley Snipes could show up in the Blade movie for all we know. You know what I mean? Like they have the capacity to do that at this point. And I think that's why we just need to like embrace it all. Like enjoy the fact that Hugh Jackman's coming back for one last round as Wolverine.
Or he's going to be in Secret Wars, so.
Yeah.
Well, in theory, everyone should be in Secret Wars.
Exactly.
I'm not happy unless everyone who's ever been in Marvel anything is in Secret Wars. That's the whole point of Secret Wars. It's the big picnic.
10 years ago, I wrote this joke, not even really a joke post, but I wrote this post defending the concept of the cinematic universe. At the time, there was some debate within the Nerds of Color about like, we shouldn't do cinematic universes and blah, 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 blah. So I wrote a post like defending the cinematic universe. It's funny because like I'm getting to a point where like I'm kind of tired of the cinematic universe and I want people to be able to do whatever they want. But that's a different argument for a different time. But in that post from 10 years ago, I made the joke that like, if Disney, Sony, and Fox can figure their shit out, maybe we'll get like Secret Wars with, and at the time I think I had a picture of Andrew Garfield, a picture of Hugh Jackman, and a picture of like whoever the Avengers were at the time. And that's the fuck we're getting that shit.
At the time, it seemed like a joke. Aren't these funny times we live in?
Yeah. Speaking of recasts, one of the major recasts from 10 years ago was when Don Cheadle took over the role of War Machine. And there's been all this talk about like, how come they don't talk about Armor Wars? Where's Armor Wars? This big Disney Plus series that they were going to release at some point in phase 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. Well, it turns out one of the reasons they haven't been announcing Armor Wars is they've been retooling Armor Wars and turning it into a movie.
Yeah.
I'll say this before I turn it over to you guys. Like some Disney Plus series should have been movies to begin with.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Falcon Winter Soldier, I'm looking at you. Like if you were a movie, you might have been a dope movie. As a series, there's some, lulls.
Eternals, you should have been a series and probably not a feature. But...
Yeah, exactly. Is this like Feige and Marvel Studios like taking a hint, or do you think like Armor Wars just was the story was too big for a Disney Plus series?
I think it's a bit of both because I don't know. It's like Don Cheadle, where I feel like you should kind of give him his own movie actually. And then at the same time, it's just like, is there enough to stretch this into at least 6 episodes? I don't know, because technically when it goes to 6 episodes, it's like at least 5 hours of stuff. So it's like, do we have enough of 5 hours of story here versus, like maybe 2 or 2.5 hours. So I feel like that could be part of it because they're realizing maybe some of the shows aren't working as well. I don't know, but I'm excited. I just kind of want to figure out who's maybe co-leading with him or something.
Yeah.
For me, I know like I'll go see it because I think he's cool, but how many other of the general audience likes War Machine enough to go see a War Machine movie? That's the other side of it.
Yeah.
The premise of Armor Wars, the comic, if we're talking about the original one, I don't know if they made like an Armor Wars 2 within the last 10 years or whatever in the comics, but the premise was that Tony Stark, Iron Man, finds, his technology's been used by all the other armored Marvel techie villains, and he feels, responsibility and bad about that. So he goes around and basically fights every single armored techie villain in the Marvel Universe. So for one thing, we did already have that story beat in way back in Iron Man 1. That was
and
sort
2
of argued.
and 3. Like, doesn't he end up fighting
the
Iron?
premise right. He felt bad about creating all these weapons. And then it's like, how many? Okay, in the comics, there's a zillion Iron Man villains who are basically guys in armor. So it was always a really cool thing to draw. It was all these cyber knights just attacking each other. It was really great visually.
Like Crimson Dynamo and
Titanium Man. They did make a joke about Crimson Dynamo and Black Widow and the Mauler and freaking all the guardsmen. Anyway, I could go on all day, but it probably, for one thing, it should get a movie budget because the premise is cool. If there's a lot of really expensive CGI doing all these suits, it's gonna be all suits all the time and best possible thing.
I mean, you gotta think maybe Riri Williams will be in it. That
one hopes.
Yeah, well, she's supposed to be in the show.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, so I think that
right.
I just don't know how big of a part she'll have.
That might have been the first mention of her casting at all, was related to when they announced Armor Wars, the TV series.
It was both,
Maybe.
because I think they announced that they were doing an Ironheart show as well as she was going to appear in that. But then we know she's actually first appearing in Wakanda Forever. So
yeah, right.
Which I can't believe that's literally next month.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Anyway, Armor Wars being sort of on the fence between, does it have the big star power, and is it better for the features audience or the TV show audience? I don't know. I think it's a good idea because I think they'll find it should be a show with lots of flashy suits and explosions more than the, character drama show. And I say that meaning I hope there is a, Iron Man team formed of at least Rhodey and Ironheart and, hopefully someone else.
But do you feel like it is a stretch to ask the audience to accept what is essentially an Iron Man movie sans Iron Man? To your point about is War Machine a big enough draw?
Well, they might bring back the holographic Tupac-y Tony Stark that they have in the comics when he dies for a while, and they have he's just exists as a holographic AI for a while. But no, probably not. You're right.
I don't think the issue is so much because Don Cheadle's a black man. I think the issue is just that his character has always been just so much a sidekick that it was just when we got the introduction of Sam Wilson in the MCU was at the same time they had already started making Sam Wilson Captain America in the comics. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of some people were like, oh, are they going to do a black Captain America at some point in the MCU? So I feel introducing Sam Wilson as a sidekick was very different versus introducing Rhodey, because I feel like Rhodey hasn't had enough to make people okay, yeah, let's see something with Rhodey leading a film, So I don't know. I just hope it does well because I would hate it for it to not do good. But I don't know.
They also might want to change the title because they're coming out with that other Wars movie at some point in the next couple of years. Or maybe just everything with wars in it is fine. I don't know.
Star Wars.
Well, speaking of things not going so well, the Blade movie is seemingly hit some speed bumps along the way. First of all, it was announced that Boston Tariq, the director, exited the film. And we've seen directors leave MCU films in the past for various reasons.
Yes, but he's staying on, I think, as an executive producer. Yeah.
And then there was a rumor, this was unsubstantiated. It was one of the, gossipy nerd culture websites. Mm-hmm. Had a report that Marsha Ali is not happy with the movie and that they're going back to the drawing board to rewrite the movie, and I think they're delaying the production of the movie, so that's going to throw off the timing of when Blade's supposed to come out. Blade was one of the movies we were most excited about when they announced way back when at Comic-Con 2019, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, 3 years later, we're still kind of pardon the pun, in developmental hell with, I guess that's not a pun. Hell's got nothing to do with Blade.
That's just it's an industry phrase, developmental hell. Yeah. Everyone says in Hollywood.
This news has been, disappointing for me. How do you guys feel?
It's frustrating, but it's kind of like there's a director that I always felt would be better suited for Blade, and I've also mentioned this person to do Ghost Rider film is Anton Fuqua.
Oh, okay.
Done like for those who don't know, he did like the Equalizer movies and my favorite King Arthur movie with Clive Owen and like Keira Knightley, that movie, and also the original Mr. Fantastic, Ian Griffith or whatever his name is. Great movie if you haven't seen it. So I felt like he would be the right person to do Blade, especially if you've also seen Training Day. Like him doing the Blade.
Ooh, can he bring back Ethan Hawke's character from Moon Knight somehow?
Oh God, you're just being crazy.
I don't know. I just feel like Anton Fuqua is like the dude for like the type, especially if you like the Wesley Snipes Blade. I feel like that's the best person to pay homage in a way, maybe if that's what you're hoping for, and also carve out and do something new. But also, I think he would also be really great for Ghost Rider, especially the Robbie Reyes version. I wrote about that on There's a Color a few years ago, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like maybe they should get Anton Fuqua.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And Fuqua is very established. And that's a thing. Like, again, maybe, and no disrespect to the director who's leaving. Is it Tariq or it's like I don't know his work, but he's also not as established. And yeah, and Anton Fuqua directing a Blade movie would be a great idea. The question is, could they expend the resources or do the right pitch or whatever to get
would Fuqua want to do it?
Yeah, or would Fuqua do it? All these questions.
One of the things that like a lot of Marvel, like the reason Edgar Wright left, the reason that a lot of directors leave the MCU is that they feel constrained by
the
system.
I understand why MC needs to do it, but I feel like, maybe some of these directors could actually really give something cool and different if you gave them a little bit more free range. Like I thought Multiverse of Madness was really dope. And I feel like it would have been even cooler if Sam Raimi got to do a little bit more of his style. Like, especially if you've seen the stunt scene that they had came up with where Wanda is basically like, I think she decapitates one of the like Taj Mahal people. Like that stunt choreo was like really freaking cool. And I'm just like, I would have loved this to be in the film. So I don't know.
Maybe they're saying that's a little more Evil Dead-y than Marvel Universe for our taste.
More than that, like I think it didn't help that the last 3 Marvel movies, box office aside and critical acclaim or whatever, but you can't ignore the fact that like Eternals, Multiverse of Madness, and Love and Thunder, for whatever reasons, people didn't enjoy them as much. There was more talk around it's too much a Taika movie, it's too much a Chloe Zhao movie, it's too much a Raimi movie. It doesn't fit what I think of as a Marvel. And they kind of made the, like they were okay, let's go back to like in-house, TV directors doing Fantastic Four and all these other announcements. And then, it almost feels like Kevin Feige going, ooh, we got a little too experimental with these movies. Let's dial it back.
It could be.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, you know how I feel. I love those, like all 3 of them. I thought were I really liked Eternals. I thought it was a great movie, visually and everything. So I mean, I don't know. It just seems a little reactionary.
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as the Blade thing, I think it's a good thing. I don't think they're disassembling the movie. It's several years out. And again, no disrespect to the director whose work I don't know, but they could get another director. And it could be a case of, Mahershala Ali is a pretty big star and might be exercising some pull to get the script or the personnel involved, exactly how he wants it.
Yeah.
Right. And in that case, it's a good thing. While there is time in development hell, which sometimes just means you take extra years to work on a thing, there's time to, craft something that will really be a good product. I'm in no hurry to see a Blade movie that they rush out just because they said there was one guy directing it, and they can change those things. If you're asking, I don't think it's going like on the track of like there won't be a Blade movie. I think it means they're like really thinking about how to do the best Blade movie. I mean, given that there are already 3, they might as well like take time to like figure shit out. It's not like there's never been any Blade ever and we just can't wait for there to be
maybe Ryan Reynolds will be in a multiversal Blade movie too. He's just gonna
Oh my god.
I think you're right that Blade is so ways off. It does feel like, I mentioned Eternals, there was the whole Easter egg of Blade showing up, even though we don't see him in the post-credit sequence of Eternals. And the most recent She-Hulk, there's a vampire character. Right. Whether or not he's really a vampire, I think can be debated. But I think the character is an actual character from the comic Saracen.
I assume so. Had anyone heard of him before? Or
no, but I've actually heard of Porcupine Man because he's in the Spider-Woman comic where like she's pregnant and then they end up becoming friends and he ends up kind of reforming and becoming like a good guy slash her babysitter. Like, so
Yeah, all of the
a lot
characters in
of them.
the support group are real Marvel characters, apparently.
Yeah, I think all of them were. And yeah, and just a technical note, it's Porcupine, not Porcupine Man.
It's
But-
just
Sorry.
Porcupine. Sorry.
sorry,
Come on,
even though I
Brittany.
actually
I really
read
like
a comic
Porcupine.
with him in it.
Yeah, right. These, I mean, it's obviously Porcupine Man is not far off, but
Gotcha.
he's one of those guys who would be in Armor Wars because he has this armored tech. It's not as ridiculous in the comic. Well, maybe it is, but anyway, we'll get to that later. He's one of those guys who would be in Armor Wars that Iron Man would chase down to get like his Porcupine spike thrower emulator thing back. Anyway, obviously they went a totally different way, and they did refer more to the comic you were talking about, Brittany, which was in the Spider-Woman.
So it's the
series.
Spider-Woman run where she's like she's pregnant, and it's also she switches over to her, or I think when she first switches over to her like streetwear look for a little bit instead of like the standard suit thing that her original classic suit. And I know like she catches him or something, and then they like work a case together. And they slowly end up becoming friends. And then when she's pregnant or whatever, he's kind of like helping her out.
Right.
Because she basically did like, I think she ended up doing artificial insemination, like, because everyone thought it was Hawkeye's baby, but it wasn't. And yeah, he ends up after a while kind of being like her babysitter and stuff too. It's like really funny.
Well,
so I'm
that's
just
good.
like, is there hope for Jessica Drew in the MCU now?
So far,
Her
that's the
babysitter's
strongest
there.
thread. Well, not.
Well, speaking of She-Hulk, you did predict, and I think most people predicted that the Asian guy she has a booty call with is going to be a bad guy. And it
Told
was
you.
confirmed. Josh, I think it was his name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is really
Josh.
funny because my very first boyfriend who broke my heart was named Josh. So
Mhm.
I feel you on that, Jennifer. I feel you.
Was Josh not also the name of the hunky Filipino guy in that one musical sitcom series?
My
Crazy
Crazy
Ex-Girlfriend?
Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes, that actually takes place in West Covina, and I work in Covina. So
Do people break out the
okay.
song when they order?
I
Covina,
at work I
Josh.
sing a lot. So I probably would have been a character on that show.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, She-Hulk episd.
Seven.
Episode 7.
Seven.
It was episode 7.
I loved it.
So now you're back on the She-Hulk
I
train.
know I go up and down with my love for the show, but I really liked it. Like I said, Tati was never the problem with the show, so it was great. I really love the whole retreat thing. I just loved her spending time with them, and her monologue was really, really good. So I don't know. I really like this episode a lot. I was like, all right.
I thought about you this week, Brittany, because after the episode, someone, I don't know if it was the account or somewhere, they showed a behind the scenes photo of Tatiana and her body double or her She-Hulk double, and it's this like 7-foot lady, painted green essentially, and it just made me think, like you always say, like why couldn't they have just cast someone? Clearly, there's someone who looks like an actual She-Hulk. They're just using her for the CGI.
But
model,
even then, it like what sucks is like even though they are using quote unquote a body double, it just looks so bad with all the CGI in certain scenes. So it's just like but I will say this episode was really great. I have no complaints about it. I was glad that I was right about him being a villain. It was fun. Yeah.
And I think the most number of actual comic book characters in a Disney Plus series thus far, because there's like 8 of them. Not all of them
remember
Z-list.
that guy is his name Aguila, this was the Spanish guy. Like I totally recognized him from maybe it was Secret Wars way back when, or like the costume is very distinctive, but I don't remember anything else about that.
I think I read he was in West Coast Avengers, or not the West Coast Avengers, but one of those jokey Avengers.
The Gulf Coast Avengers, when there were 50 Avengers teams after Civil War.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, all that aside, and all our CJ complaints aside, I did like the monologue part, and I liked it again because it really focused in on the title character of the show, which I still think is the way that this show works. Lives or dies on. They spend a lot of time dancing around with the side characters and the reveals. Whether or not you're drawn in or fall out because of the way the CGI looks, it was totally focused on her and her performance, and something that's really going on in her head. And I just like, we should have about 20% more of that.
I really liked the beginning of the episode where it was the montage of their dates, and then
and everything looks
waiting
perfect.
for his text.
And I liked it a lot. Very well done. I have no complaints on that episode. And I also have to say I love the way Jamila has been promoting the show and going to like Fashion Week and like doing all this stuff. I just honestly, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like maybe my problem is I'm tuning out on some of the rom-com ish tropey stuff because, as like I said, I'm not really feeling that part. But like, yeah, as of that first part, I will say good use of the Haim song. That was lovely. But I have more comments on like the actual rom-com stuff is like too much for me. But I realize it totally works for other people, so good for them.
I feel like it would have to be in some way because of like the way just some of her comics are. It is about her trying to be a normal person while being more,
Totally
really trying to balance that life because she is more trying to be a lawyer and live her life and not superhero. So
Totally.
I feel like you would have more romantic stuff in like a She-Hulk show.
And we're getting all this, with so much MCU content now, it's good that we do things that are tropes for different kind of audiences. I want to say that like a open-minded kind of way.
I did appreciate that Emil Blonsky's retreat is called Obama Stay.
Obama Stay, yes, I noticed that.
I thought that was my favorite part.
Yeah. Do we think is he enjoying doing this riff on Abomination or what? Or is like it's different.
I think Tim Roth is having fun for sure.
I feel like he's having fun.
And we'll see. Like maybe his inhibitor is not malfunctioning and he is turning into the Abomination.
I think so. I think there's something else going on that's like hidden beneath the surface of all that. But yeah, I don't know. I love the whole like group thing. It was fun. I'm looking forward to the next. Is it 2 episodes or last?
I think it's one more. I think it's just one more. I think 8 is
That's
it.
crazy.
And Daredevil, they're saving
It's
Daredevil.
finally, I know, for last.
I know I was wrong about Blonsky being part of the Thunderbolts, but the last MCU thing I want to talk about before we go to break is that, and remember, this is rumor, there's nothing confirmed, but the other crazy rumor from the MCU this week was that for the Thunderbolts movie, they're recasting Thunderbolt Ross because William Hurt passed away with Harrison Ford.
Yes.
That's
which apparently
rumor.
he hasn't accepted the role or he already turned it down. That's the rumor. But people are mad because they're like, oh, so you can recast an actor after they've died. And it's just like, I get where you're going, but like,
no one was upset that no shade to William Hurt, but it wasn't like he's so, tied to the character. I mean, this is the thing people forget about the Chadwick thing. Like, Chadwick's passing was not the same thing as William Hurt's passing. You know what I mean? Either way, though, like I don't know that. I mean, I didn't hear that Harrison Ford turned it down. I didn't even think this was a real rumor.
I don't think that's true on any level. I think you should monitor what things you're reading on the internet.
Oh, I mean, it kind of like went everywhere. Like the whole Harrison Ford.
That's great. I think that's zero true. I mean, I think it might be true they offered him a part.
I feel like he
Harrison
wouldn't do it just because of like
he doesn't have to do anything because he would be Red Hulk for most of the movie.
I don't know. I just feel like he also wouldn't want to do it because like he wouldn't want to get trapped in another type character like Han Solo.
And again, you don't need the huge iconic actor to be General Ross.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if anything, you know what I would do?
Some guy.
If you're gonna if you have to bring back Thunderbolt Ross, and it kind of makes sense for the Thunderbolts that you would have Thunderbolt Ross, who they're named after,
maybe
in the movie. But why not get Sam Elliott, who played Thunderbolt Ross in the Yang Lee movie, and don't even mention, don't even comment on it. Just be like,
don't even comment. He'd be great. Sam Elliott's always great,
and he was right. Like, I mean,
he was also in the Blade movie, I believe.
That's right.
Or one of them.
He was. I think he was Whistler or something.
Yeah, Whistler.
He's also on 1983, which is the prequel spinoff for Yellowstone.
Well,
man, you are really hyped.
It is the Yellowstone cinematic universe.
Living in it. Is the Yellowstone the one that controls power or time in the Infinity Gauntlets?
I don't think any of the Gauntlet stones are yellow. I think the Gauntlet was yellow.
There's totally a yellow one, dude.
There was a Yellowstone.
There was? But then it would clash with the Gauntlet.
Mine.
You couldn't see it when it's in the Gauntlet.
Or it was more orange. Maybe it was more orange.
Yeah, orange is the Soul Stone. At least in the movies. I don't know. Like the stone colors are different in the comics. We've lost all of our listeners at this point.
They're probably like, what is wrong?
Not my cousin Stephanie. She's waiting for a shout out.
Why don't we take a break? And on the other side of the break, we'll discuss the most recent episode of Andor and what's nerd popping. Guess what? Goalie Nutrition is sponsoring Hard Knock Life, and you can go to goalie.com to buy apple cider vinegar gummies, they're ashwagandha gummies, superfruit gummies, and super greens gummies, and you get 10% off plus free shipping if you use the code HARDKNOCK at goalie.com. This is honestly, I've been taking the goalie gummies now for a couple weeks, and I have to say, they're tasty and they're good for you. Have you guys been enjoying the goalie gummies?
I really like them. They're yummy, but it's a nice to add to my routine of already I normally take just straight vitamin C, so it's nice to have extra supplements.
For a long time, people have praised the benefits of apple cider vinegar, and as someone who's had to drink straight apple cider vinegar sometimes when I'm not feeling well, or I have some joint pain, and your mom was like, drink some apple cider vinegar. It's not the most appetizing home remedy, let's just say.
Right.
It tastes horrible.
So, the apple cider part is ooh, does it taste like apple cider? And it's no, it tastes like vinegar. But ACV is very good for you. And the fact that Goalie has been able to put the ACV into these tasty little gummies made with pectin and fruit peels, which make them vegan, which is cool. So if you're vegan, you can still rock these gummies, because everyone knows gummies are usually made out of gelatin and nasty shit. These are made out of complete non-GMO, gelatin-free, gluten-free, vegan ingredients, and you can get the benefits, all of the benefits of apple cider vinegar, taking these tasty, delicious, convenient gummies. So go to goalie.com and use the code HARDKNOCK, that's HARDNOC, just like the podcast you're listening to. Get 10% off your purchase of Goalie products and free shipping.
It's a much better delivery device for that apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
These Goalie gummies are great. You get it, and it's a delicious little candy. And I've been enjoying the super fruits one. I did feel kind of refreshed after taking a few of those.
Yeah, no, but I'm loving them so far, and they're definitely tasty. If you just want tasty gummies, at least just eat them for the yumminess.
Yeah. So go to goalie.com, use the code HARDKNOCK, HARDNOC, get 10% off your purchase and free shipping at goalie.com with the code HARDKNOCK. This is the all Disney Plus episode of Hard Knock Life, because the non-Marvel thing we'll talk about, of course, is Andor episode 4.
A New Hope. No, sorry.
Yes, I am 10 million % in. It feels more like the adult Star Wars stuff that people have been wanting for such a long time. I loved all the stuff with Mon Mothma. I loved also just watching. I can never remember Stellan's character's name, but him switching.
Luthian, I think his name is.
It's because it's like a normal name, but not really. It's like Star Wars, so it's like Luthian.
Yeah, Luthian.
It's halfway between Lutheran and Luther, and yet it's not either of those things.
Yeah, but no, I liked when he's in the in his spaceship or whatever ship, and he's changing from out of his rebel attire to the guy who's selling artifacts and stuff. I loved that whole change.
He's getting into character,
and he's whatever he's doing.
Yeah,
I'm just
cool.
Yes, this is great. Also, the dude from The Bear was in it. I can't remember. He was also on Punisher. He's one of the guys that Cassian is help one of the people, the group of people.
Oh, Micro on the Punisher.
Is that his name?
Well, that's the name of the Punisher character, and I remember that guy in the series, but
He's
I can't
the one
remember
who
played him.
who pretended he was dead and stuff, and was watching his family from a distance. Was that the name of the character?
The character's name is definitely Micro or Microchip in the comics, but yeah, he's Punisher's guy in the chair, and he was very good in that Punisher.
So yeah, that guy, he's on Andor. For those who don't know, not to bring it back to Marvel, he's also on The Bear, and then it's very funny because John Bernthal's in 2 episodes of The Bear, and he's actually has their cousins on basically the show.
Well,
yeah,
I thought they were literal cousins. Tangled Web. What did you think about Andor 4, Keith?
No, I thought it was great. I actually, truth be told, tuned out a little bit on the stuff with the rebels camping out, honestly, because I really like the stuff on Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the stuff in the ISB, I guess is what they're called, in Imperial Security Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those 2 storylines, I was riveted. Every time they cut back to the campground, I kind of lost interest a little bit. I get that was just setting the table for their heist, which is cool. Mm-hmm. But I was really riveted by the Imperial Spy Bureau place where they're all the inner office bickering between the lady and the dude.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite, 100% favorite segment was Mon Mothma and Luthian having their clandestine talk at the gallery. and then meeting Mon Mothma's like dumbass husband.
Yeah, and he's basically like a Trumpy. I don't know. Empire.
Actually, I'm more excited for the dinner party than the heist.
Yeah.
I wonder if Bale is gonna be there.
Maybe Bail Organa. And did he mention like the Emperor's Vizier? So is it the blue guy or is it the bald lady? I feel like one. Remember in Revenge of the Sith, like there's that like blue guy who is like the Emperor's right hand man, and then there's like that bald lady. I feel like one of them, you know, who's the like the right hand of the Emperor, is going to be at the dinner party. And I mean the tension already.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait to watch.
And I imagine that very interesting scene between Mon Mothma and her husband, where it was a way of probably analogizing to real world like political events, probably to like trying to give us some protein, as Tony Gilroy might like to say, because like in the intrigue of like the Senate as it exists in Star Wars, what is it, the Galactic Senate, or you know, I don't have a clear picture of how that works, but like, you know, it's interesting that like she has all these guests who are coming that she doesn't like very much, because that, you know, mirrors our own world here, where like it's very like, you know, we can tend to forget that like, you know, Ted Cruz and Elizabeth Warren are co-workers in this body, right? So we have this weird picture of them, and you know, some would argue they're all in it together, but it would be interesting to see if that reflects our political realities.
The only difference though is that the insurrectionists are the good guys in Star Wars.
Right, that always gets twisted, because what is the rebellion, what is the empire?
Yeah,
but they get that twisted too. They would say the opposite. You know, everyone pictures themselves as
right. Exactly.
Anyway.
Everyone's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. That's the old
and
adage.
that does actually turn out to be true, because it's all point of view.
And that's the whole like Rogue One. This era of the Star Wars is all about that. And what's interesting is that like again, seeing the inner workings of the Empire and just seeing how like mundane it is, right? Like when you had like Maester Qyburn, you know, kind of like leading this like bureaucratic conference room. You know, Qyburn from Game of Thrones was the main, like the leader of the ISB in the episode. It's just a bureaucratic bullshit. And it had nothing to do with like the Force and wizards and stuff like that, right? It was just like, here's all the minutiae we have to deal with to govern. And you know, it, of course, I mean, there's with a tinge of evil behind every decision they make, but at the same time, it I don't know. I know some people may be thinking it's boring. Like I want to get to the pew pew and the lightsabers, but for me, this has been like 100% riveting.
Right. And then that was a funny line when my mom's husband said, must everything be sad and boring? That was such like a great trolling line. Because like, what are you talking about? Talking about indie movies? Or are you talking about the fact that there aren't enough lightsaber battles? What exactly are you talking about? No, I thought all that shit was awesome. And again, it's complicated. This is a show that is ambitious and can engage with complicated things. I was gonna say, as opposed to the way the, you know, original trilogy attempted to like deal with like political issues, and like I thought that was kind of I did want to get to the pew pew at that point. This was a really interesting episode. Again, ambitious because like, you know, after introducing the core characters, I want to say they sort of introduced like basically 3 significant new characters who all seem, if I may say broadly, like ambitious white ladies, and then are just cutting between them. There's different
That's
stuff,
true.
You know, and so some are arguably are sort of in that Katie Sackhoff, like, you know, Battlestar Galactica kind of vibe, kind of type. So you did have to do a lot of paying attention.
Yeah,
observe what was happening. And I like Kel, the leader of the proto rebel squad, quite a lot. I thought she was cool.
What was the Imperial officer's name? I completely forgot what her name was. I don't even remember her name.
I think it was. I just looked it up, but I forgot because it's some weird. Sorry, with Misto or Misto or something.
Yeah.
The reason I looked it up was because I thought, okay, what's the significance of this? And I thought maybe she's Phasma, like Phasma's mom or something. But then again, I can't remember the name that it actually is.
So yeah, it's still all in. If I had one critique of this episode, is that I thought it ended weird. Like it kind of like just stopped. They're at like by the fire. And they're talking about like getting ready for the big mission tomorrow, and then it just like cut the black, and I was like, oh, it's over. Like I almost went I wish Andor was released as maybe like, instead of what is it, like 12 episodes, as like 4 90-minute movies.
Right.
I think
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. And that's what I think Gilroy's going for here, is that if you're planning out 12 episodes, each batch of 3 can essentially be its own feature.
Mhm.
And I think they accomplished that really well with, the first 3 episodes. They kind of are a coherent story. But the difference is they don't end with a big bang bang, but they're
Right.
just a story that is that chunk that goes 1, 2, 3. So I think we may get a lot of that where like the episodes themselves feel kind of jagged, but I bet like over each like 3 episodes, chunk,
Absolutely.
there'll be a significant, they'll feel like four features.
I think you even said last week, had they just released the first episode of Andor and made you wait for 2 and 3, it would have felt like, oh, that's
it would have fucked people's minds up.
Yeah.
That was not, it just wouldn't have like what? Because it's just a different style.
Yeah.
But I think that I hope that gamble will pay off, because I think it is intentional, and I think moreover, I think it's being executed well with that intentionality.
Yeah.
But yeah, traditionally there would have been another pew pew or cliffhanger there. But
yeah, well, it's not even so much like wanting a cliffhanger, because I think that is also tropey when it comes to like streaming series and binging series. But it's just like, there is a rhythm to like a television episode, to your point.
Mhm.
And that like it just didn't feel like that's the natural cut point for a television episode. And I think because these aren't designed to be television episodes, and it just so happens that Disney's like, well, we're still going to cut them into like 30-minute chunks and give it to you week by week, even though it makes more sense as a 90-minute chunk than a 30-minute chunk.
Yeah, but we are digesting it in that serialized way where we have to wait every week.
Yeah.
So they should take that into consideration.
Which is fine. I'm patient. That's where people were saying like it's a slow burn, is because it just means you just have to be patient to let the story play out. Anyway, speaking of Star Wars and the pew pew and the Force, Brittany Monet, what is nerd poppin'?
So yesterday I got a very cool tattoo by my coworker, who's also a tattoo apprentice. So the tattoo is
tattoo Padawan, I think is the word.
Oh yes, tattoo Padawan. I got both Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsabers, and there's flowers and kind of like petals like falling off. It's very cool. Which you can see on my Instagram at Hi Brittany Monet. I love it. I'm very happy with it.
It's your second tattoo now, right?
Yes. So my first one was a Pierce the Veil tattoo, which is funny because the guitarist of Pierce the Veil is a huge Star Wars fan. And so I thought it was very funny that my first 2 tattoos were Pierce the Veil.
And of course, as you wrote in the Nerds of Color, emo is now canonical to the Star Wars universe.
Yep. Because of B2 emo. So it's all goes together. Yeah, if you live in Southern California and want to have a Padawan tattoo person do your tattoo, I tagged his Instagram too. So like he's still learning, but he's very cool. He's my fellow barista coworker. So yeah.
Very cool. Dominic, what's nerd popping?
What's nerd popping? Well, I mean, this is more personal than like general pop cultural, but I just went to Vegas for a couple of days. So, I was totally tuned out of all of life, and they catch up on the 2 episodes last night. But we had like an in-person meeting of my Zoom trivia group, which we had over the early pandemic, and was really a nice thing when, we couldn't do anything. And we play pub trivia like nerds. It's a nerdy thing to do. Oh, and one of the people in the group is MC Frontalot, who's a good old childhood friend of mine.
Don't brush over it. Also one of the biggest nerdcore artists in the scene.
Yeah, he, I believe, invented the word nerdcore as it's applied to music. I think he did that. And, a subgenre of internet hip-hop-ish music. We'll say it's mainly about like nerdy shit, Star Wars and motherboards and stuff like that. So yeah, I think he invented that. So we got to have a good old nerdy time doing trivia and traipsing around Vegas, which is either a terrible place or the greatest place in the world, depending on where you're coming from. And yeah, shout out to Frontalot and Brandon and Gabi and all the Zoom trivia homies. It's a great time. Bad buffet, but great time. I'm sorry about recommending that buffet, but everything else was great. And Keith, what was your popping?
2 things. I spoke to Hassan Minaj over the last few days.
Oh, cool.
You can see the video of our interview on our YouTube channel. His new special, The King's Jester, comes out on Netflix this week, so you can check that out on Tuesday. It drops. It's the follow-up to The Homecoming King, which was his first Netflix special. And actually, one of the things I trolled him about, apparently, in the interview is that he's 2 for 2 for Peabody Awards, because He got a Peabody for Homecoming King, and he got a Peabody for his show Patriot Act. And I asked him, like, if you don't get a Peabody for this one, is it considered a failure? You can see his answer on the Nerds of Color YouTube channel.
What are you, his fucking Tiger Peabody mod? That was the thrust of that joke, right?
Basically,
you only have 2 of these awards. Good, slacking.
The other thing that's nerd popping that I can't pass up, if you're a fan of Community, the clarion call for that show's existence, at least since season 2, was the hashtag 6 seasons in a movie.
Okay.
And the show went 6 seasons. It's been off the air for 7 years, but they announced this week they're getting their movie.
Hey. Okay.
And
okay.
So they did not announce Donald Glover in the cast, but I think it's fair to say they are not doing a Community movie without Troy. And if you're a fan of Community, at the beginning of the pandemic, they did a virtual table read of a classic Community episode. They brought back Donald Glover because he's the one guy from Community that became like a superstar after the show.
Yeah, okay, that's fair to say.
And he would be the hardest one to ever get back. But he actually pitched an idea during the table read that like the movie should be about Abed, played by Danny Pudi, trying to find Troy and track him down because Troy leaves with LeVar Burton during season 5
into space. Okay. No, sorry, I don't know Community that well.
No, not into space, but on a ship.
Okay.
And so I'm just super excited as a huge fan of Community, the fact that they're getting their movie. The downside is I gotta fucking subscribe to Peacock now because
well, hey man, that might change over the next couple of years. You know,
they'll pull in Armor Wars.
That means you can watch Yellowstone.
Yeah, those streaming services, you know, they merge and split up. You know, things happen.
Yeah, right, exactly. It'll be on HBO Max or Discovery by the
time it's actually made.
Yeah,
who knows? It's
not so much that I have any kind of like beef with Peacock. It's just that I got enough fucking streaming services. I don't need another one.
My little brother pays for that one.
Was there a general concept of what the Community movie would be like? I mean, when this is
no clue,
happening,
no clue,
just
no
that
clue.
There should be one.
It was just like, again, the premise is the episode where the hashtag was born. Abed is talking about a show. If you know anything about Community, it's very like meta. And so Abed was talking about the show he was talking about as a real show. If you remember on NBC, there was a superhero show back in the early aughts called The Cape.
Ah, yes.
And Abed was a huge fan of that show.
I wonder if that's on Peacock.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. And so he was like 6 seasons in a movie. Because that's the other thing people forget about. Like back in the day, TV shows used to graduate to movies. Like you think of Star Trek, right? Like you would have 7 seasons of Star Trek and then they would do movies. Or you would have like 7 seasons of X-Files, then you would get a movie. That was my thing for Smallville. I thought Smallville should, like, instead of going 10 seasons, they should have done 5 seasons and then a movie. That's not the case so much anymore. Like, they don't have the movie version, you know, shows don't necessarily, like, graduate to movies anymore. But that was what, you know, the Community fandom kind of latched onto. And
wow.
That was 7 years ago, and people have been clamoring for it. They don't have a director yet. We don't have a plot. My pitch in my write-up on the Nerds Colors is that the Russo brothers should come back and do the Community movie. Speaking of folks who like got huge after the show. So anyway, Brittany Monet, how can people find you on the internet and see your tattoos?
You can find me at Hi Brittany Monet. And if you go on actually Instagram, you will find Brandon's, which if you just want to go straight to Brandon's Instagram, it is at Driven by Suffering 92. So yeah, he's also clearly emo.
That's why you get along so well.
It's funny because he usually works morning shifts and I always work closing shifts. So I was like, I haven't met Brandon, you know, and he transferred into the store from a different store. And then when I finally met him, I'm like, heard you do tattoos. And he's like, yeah. He's like, what do you want? And I was like, lifesavers. He's like, we'll talk. And so, yeah.
It's easy as that. Dominic, how can people find you?
I'm Dominic Ma on social media. I'm Dama, DOMMAH on Instagram or Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_Chow, and on Instagram at RealKeithChow. Follow the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color and go to hardknockmedia.com. Find this and all the podcasts in the Hard Knock family. Give us a rating and review if you do. Subscribe to our videos, including my Hassan Minaj interview at youtube.com/the Nerds of Color, and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/the Nerds of Color. And until next time.
Lashana Tova. or something else.